In New Haven, Connecticut today, police snipers were on guard as two suspects in a horrific home invasion made an appearance in court. They're accused of entering this family's home in the middle of the night, attacking the father, then sexually assaulting the mother and one of her young daughters before killing the mother and her two girls. Police say they set the house on fire and they were caught as they tried to flee. The security was so heavy at the courthouse because this case has just infuriated the public and scared them as well. Why were these two ex-cons with such long rap sheets out on the streets? Former prosecutor REMI Spencer and defense attorney Sharon Liko join me now to talk about it. REMI, do you have an answer to that? The older of the two, the Stephen Hayes, 25 years in and out of the system. The younger one, within 96 hours, they say, after his monitoring bracelet was taken off, he was allegedly terrorizing this family.
It's true. The system simply did not work here. I believe those were the words of the victim in this case. Our laws exist for a reason, and when they don't work, when the system doesn't work as it should, people are injured. And in this case, the victims were brutally tortured and ultimately murdered. There are laws on the books in the state of Connecticut that require that the parole board and the Department of Corrections review both the pre-sentence report that's prepared before any defendant is sentenced and then the actual transcript of the judge's sentencing. Here, we know that there was a breakdown in the system because the parole board did not review that. If the parole board had reviewed those pre-sentence reports and the transcript, they would have seen that one of these two men's own attorneys said, in fact, that his client was mentally disturbed, was in fact bizarre, and that he was in need of both a psychiatric evaluation, as well as close monitoring. Furthermore, I believe the judge said during the sentencing that one of them was, in fact, depraved and cold-hearted. Here, the parole board didn't review the documents that they're obligated to review by law, and as a result, these two men were released. Had they not been released, clearly we wouldn't be having this discussion, as there would have been no crime.
Sharon, this is a death penalty case. Two well-known defense attorneys have taken on these two clients. How do you go about defending these guys?
Well, the issue is whether they live or whether they die. So I think that the state's failure to do what they should have done probably helps in terms of mitigating factors.
How?
These two did not have a violent history. They had a long history of theft and burglary, but they hadn't been convicted of a violent crime. However, there was evidence that they were both mentally ill, as the prosecutor pointed out, those statements that were made. And even if the Department of Corrections didn't read the criminal record, they should have done their own testing. Usually when people are sentenced, they get a diagnostic examination and a psychological test, and then they are placed within the system, given the treatment that they should have. Neither of these guys seem to have gotten any treatment, so they weren't being rehabilitated. They were only being warehoused.
Actually, if I can interrupt there, I think that they were getting treatment. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's, in fact, where they met, at a drug rehab facility.
They were not getting, they were getting drug treatment, but they were not getting treatment for their mental illnesses. One of the guys, the Russian guy, had been raped when he was 14. Was that ever addressed? If that wasn't addressed, let me tell you, that is something that just festers and festers, and then finally he just goes crazy and blows up. I mean, psychological problems do not just go away on their own. And prisons are not exactly reform houses. People don't come out better people. They come out worse.
Sharon, one last quick question for you. One of the defense attorneys said today, you know what? I'm going to do this to the best of my ability and represent this guy, but I have a wife and two daughters. This story has made everybody in this country just sick. This has got to be a hard one if you're the attorney.
Of course it is, because he's going to be concerned about death threats or maybe even being shot himself. As a defense attorney, all you can do is make sure that the person's constitutional rights are being protected. You do the best job you can. That doesn't mean that you're going to get them off as people think. Like I said, it's a death penalty case. Do these people live or do they die?
Sharon Liko, REMI Spencer, thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.